Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, our group will present three articles summary about multimodal literacy. So, the group members are Muhammad Taufiq Rahman Anfas, and then Rimba Yuskar Arum, and also Yuni Titianti.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Muhammad Taufiq Rahman Anfas, and at this time I will present a summary of an article about multimodal literacy. The title of the journal article that I summarized this time is The Effects of Using Multimodal Approaches in Meaning Making of 21st Century Literacy Text among ESL students in a private school in Malaysia, written by Malini Ganapati from University Science Malaysia. In the research background, she stated that students nowadays are engaged in various multimodal tasks due to their active participation in social media and frequent usage of mobile devices on a daily basis. Such daily activities advocate the need for transformation in the teaching and learning of ESL lessons in order to promote students' capabilities in making meaning of different literacy texts which students come across in their ESL learning activities. There are some previous studies that Malini Ganapati used to support her ideas of using multimodal approach in the classroom. The first from Bern et al. 2007, as cited in Ganapati 2016, he says that the researchers of a study by the United Kingdom Literacy Association affirmed that students were able to search through various modes of design to retrieve information, and this process of reading can never be assessed similarly to that of reading print-based text. The second, Ahmad Suhaimi in 2004, as cited in Ganapati in 2016, said that students who participated in a research carried out in Malaysia in several selected schools in Perak were found enjoying the lessons more than their usual traditional lessons. And the third, based on Ganapati in 2014, as cited in Ganapati 2016, she says that a total of 20 teachers joined the Queensland Department of Education carried out the Queensland Learning by Design project in 2003 to 2004, found that the learning outcomes were productive and students were active and highly motivated. The third section, the purpose of study. This journal article aims to investigate its effect and students' perspectives on the use of multimodal approaches underlying the multi-literacies theory. Using focus group interviews, this qualitative case study examines the effectiveness of ESL teaching and learning using the multimodal approaches on literacy in meaning making among 15 students in a private school in Penang, Malaysia. Part 4. The theories. It uses multimodal approach based on some arguments below. The first, the key to multimodal perspectives on literacy is the basic assumption that meanings are made, as well as distributed, interpreted, and remade. through many representational and communicational resources, of which language is but one, based on Kress and Van Leeuwen in 2001, as cited in Ganapathy 2016. The second, the researches reveal that positive changes in learning takes place through the use of visual and verbal multimodal learning. It's based on Fadel 2008, page 12, as cited in Ganapathy 2016. Part 5, the method. It uses a case study method since it's useful when the focus of the study is to answer how and why questions. The behavior of those involved in the study cannot be altered. Contextual conditions are the required for the purpose of the study, or when the boundaries are not clear between the phenomenon and context. It's based on Yin 2003 as cited in Ganapathy 2016. And the study was guided by the following research questions. Number 1, to what extent are the multimodal approaches beneficial to the students of ESL in meaning making? The second, what are the students' perceptions on the use of multimodal approaches in the teaching and learning of ESL? Part 6, the findings. Ganapathy divided her findings into 4 parts. The first, the learner's engagement and motivation. This case study claims that the multimodal approach promotes learner engagement in the teaching and learning process of ESL, as the researcher believes that students appear to be positive-minded and motivated to learn with the use of multimodal approach resources and materials in the class. The second, the self-directed learning. It also promotes students' autonomy and instigates self-directed learning. Based on the data collected from the students claimed to require less teachers' facilitation with the use of technological gadgets in the class. The third, the learning styles. This study also claims that the use of multimodal approach enables educators to cater to the different learners' needs in ESL learning environments. And the fourth, students' perceptions of their ESL learning experiences using multimodal approach. This study highlights students' perceptions about their experiences during ESL lessons, which incorporate multimodal approach as more exciting, motivating, and promoting cooperative learning and teamwork, which eventually made them better learners. The use of iPads and laptops in class is said to have enhanced students' cooperation and teamwork. Part 7, the responses. Based on the explanation above, the article gives us a clear picture of how multimodal approach is used in meaning making of the literary text used in some areas below. The first, the future research. It is exciting to know that this could be one of the interesting topics that I might research to get to know more about how multimodal approach is used in wider and different areas. The second, teaching practice. Based on the result of the research above, it convinces me a lot to use multimodal approach in the classroom, as it really changes the student's perception to highly engaging, self directed, and learner centered. And it also promotes meaning making with minimal guidance from the teachers. The third, family literacy practice. Since it has been proven effective to the students in the classroom, it inspires me a lot to use it as an approach to introduce literacy practice to my little kids, to my family, so that they will get the interest to do literacy practices with more exciting way since their early ages. The last part, the reference. You can access this journal article on www.researchgate.net slash publication slash 291832662. That's all my summary about the journal article from Malini Ganapati 2016 about multimodal approach in the classroom. Looking forward to your comments and inputs about this summary. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, for me now, I'm discussing Article 2, Multimodal Literacy by Kathy Mills and Len Answorth. Okay, now we start in background of the study. This article speak about the language and literacy practices that it is inherently multimodal because communication requires attending to diverse kind of meanings, whether of spoken or written words, visual images, gesture, posture, movement, sounds, or silence. Yet the affordances of people-driven digital media and textual production have given rise to an exponential increase in the circulation of multimodal text in digitally mediated environments. Multimodal text production has become a central part of everyday life for people across the whole of the life course, from young children to the elderly, and across cultures and societies. This has been enabled by the affordability, availability, and ease of production and sharing of digital content via the internet and mobile technologies. So, because of that, the purpose of the study uh, consists into two things. First is multimodal text production has become a central part of everyday life. That is why it has been enabled by the ease of producing and sharing digital images, music, video games, apps, and other digital media via the internet and mobile technologies. And multimodal literacy itself the originates in social semiotics and refers to the study of language that combines two or more modes of meaning. The related term, multimodality, refers to the constitution of multiple modes in semiosis or meaning making. So, because of those factors, become the study on how the meaning making in semiosis mode. So the theory, of course, it is used from a social semiotic approach. Modes are the socially and culturally shaped resources or semiotic structure for making meaning. Then multimodal literacy describes communication practices that use two or more modes of meaning. And it is explained in the uh, numbers of modes. But we can find that methods they are using here the modes that define differently across schools of thought and the classifications that is somewhat contested, including but not limited to the work of Barthes and French semiotics, discourse analysis of Bernstein, Marxian and Soviet psychology of Bakhtin, and discernible influences of art history and iconography. Graduate 20. The findings is that this article outlines the main theoretical and contemporary research on the social semiotic theory of multimodality and its application to classroom research on multimodal literacy. However, from a social semiotic approach, most are the socially and culturally shaped resource. Then what we can get from this article that we know the increasing significance of multimodal literacy for communication that led to the growing body of research and theory to address the differing potentials of modes and their intermodality for making meaning. The study of multimodal literacy learning in schools and society is a developing field of research nowadays, which begins with the important recognition that reading and writing are rarely practiced as discrete skills, but now intimately connected to the use of multimodal text, often in digital context of use. Of course, the implications of this multimodal literacy for pedagogy, curriculum, and assessment in education is really in expanding field of multimodal research. So it is really important nowadays. As addition, it is also a growing attention to multimodal literacy practices that practice in informal social contexts from early childhood to adolescent and adulthood, such as in homes, recreational sites, communities, workplace, and even classroom. Reference that I take for this uh, multimodal article is from cambridge.org core from Oxford Research Encyclopedia of Education.
The title of the journal is Students' Multimodal Literacy and Design of Learning During Self-Studies in Higher Education by Jalal Nouri, Department of Computer and System Science, Stockholm University, Stockholm, Sweden. Published online on 6 April 2018. The research background. The paper will describe how higher education students engage with technology during self-studies and how they in particular utilize different semiotic affordances of information and communication technologies in order to learn course content. From a review of research of multimodal learning in higher educational context, the following three strands of research have been distinguished. First, a strand of research has investigated multimodal teaching and instruction that puts a particular emphasis on students consuming teaching materials that are based on other modes of representation or communication than the traditional text mode. In general, this entails students being consumer of teacher-made materials within coursework, which can be exemplified by Roberts 2017, who focused on the use of image in teaching and learning activities, Walker et al. 2011, who investigated the use of video and audio recording to enhance students' learning in an introductory biology class, or Bosley et al. 2016, who look as who look at students' engagement when learning through video in online environment. Second, a strand of research has investigated the students' production of learning material through the use of single modes of representation or communication. Example of this research can be found in Liu 2016, who investigated how video blogs can support learning, or Li et al. 2008, who cast light on student-generated audio podcasts for collaborative learning purpose. Third, a strand of research has investigated the design of multimodal learning environments, mostly in the frame of learning management systems. This can be exemplified by Song et al. 2016 or Moran and Meyers 2007. Literature review which examines experimental studies on multimodal learning environment and which derives design principle for such environment. The purpose of the study of these articles are: how do university students in a computer and system science department during self-study design their learning using digital learning materials and different modes and media? Second, how university students exploit multimodal literacy and the affordances of different modes and media in order to support construction of knowledge during self-studies. Theory used in this journal, it used the multimodal approach based on Cope and Calansis 2009 differentiate three aspects of design, namely: first, available designs, found representational forms; second, the designing one does when making meaning and appropriating and transforming available design; and the third, the redesigned, how through the act of designing the word and the person is transformed. Second, conceptualized as a multimodal design theoretical perspective is proposed by Cylinder and Kress 2010 and Kress and Cylinders 2012. In their view, a distinction is made between design for learning and design in learning. The first, design for learning, represents the didactical design of teachers that is done when planning and arranging learning activities and environment, while the second, designing for learning, represents the choices the learner does in consuming, transforming, and constructing representation during the learner's process. The last, the distinction of multimodal design of learning made by Cope and Calansis 2010 and Kress and Slander 2011. In this study, they investigate how higher education students design their learning during self-studies. First, by using available design and representation in different modes, and second, by designing and producing own learning material and learning representation in different modes. This research used a mixed methods approach consisting of data collection in form of a questionnaire and face-to-face interviews that examine what kind of multimodal study practices the students perform and value. The findings in the article, there are two results. That first, show that the ways university students make meaning and build knowledge during self-study have changed. That technology make available other semiotic resources for them than the text, thus transforming monomodal learning practices into multimodal learning practices. Second, the historical dominating text as a semiotic resource is no longer of paramount importance, neither when consuming pre-existing digital learning material or when producing digital learning material in knowledge-building activities. This is my responses in this article, that in the teaching practice, higher education students have developed multimodal learning practices as the students of the study sample seem to have done. Second, it is entirely reasonable that teaching in the form of instruction, design of learning environments, and assessment should also take these practices into account and support them in the best possible way. A mismatch between the students' learning practices and the teaching practices of higher education should not be considered to be a desirable outcome. The reference, the article source from creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0. I hope if you have suggestion, critic, discussion, it's okay. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.